I'm going to call this meeting to order, Planning Commission meeting for May 17th. And we're going to go ahead and have Commissioner Ruiz lead us in the flag salute, please.
Yes, thank you. If you guys would please stand. I don't see any hats to be removed, so appreciate that. And join me here in the pledge. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone that's here. This is more than we usually have. So exciting. Okay. And roll call. Denise, please.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Here.
Solis, Turley Trail,
Here.
Watts,
Here.
and we have one excused absence from Commissioner
From Commissioner Hagel.
Hagel.
Yes, okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so do we have any public comments that are not on the agenda?
We have not received any.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and read our consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine, and all will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the commission request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. A total of 30 minutes is provided for members of the public to address the commission on items that appear on the consent calendar. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the commission secretary, and that would be Denise right there who did our roll call, or by submitting an email to be included into the record. Email comments must be submitted to planningcommission@temeculaca.gov. Speaker cards for in-person comments will be called in the order received by the commission secretary. Email comments on all matters must be received prior to the time the item is called for public comments. All public participation is governed by the council policy regarding public participation at meetings adopted by resolution number 2021-54. And the first item and only item on our consent calendar are the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Gary Watts, a second by Fernando Solis. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm going to abstain.
And one abstention and one absent. Okay. Thank you. All right. So we will, I will go ahead and read this for our public hearing. Any person may submit written comments to the commission before a public hearing or may appear and be heard in support of or in opposition to the approval of the project or projects at the time of the hearing. If you challenge any of the projects in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the commission secretary at or prior to the public hearing. For public hearings, each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the commission secretary or by submitting an email to be included into the record. Email comments must be submitted to planningcommission@temeculaca.gov. Email comments on all matters, including those not on the agenda, must be received prior to the time the item is called for public comments. Any person dissatisfied with the decision of the commission may file an appeal for the commission's decision. Said appeal must be filed within 15 calendar days after service of written notice of the decision. The appeal must be filed on the appropriate Community Development Department form and be accompanied by the appropriate filing fee. All public participation is governed by the council policy regarding public participation at meetings adopted by resolution number 2021-54. Okay, so tonight I will now call PA 230023, a modification application to add approximately 1,610 square feet, an accessory dwelling unit, not a part of this application, and exterior modifications to an existing residence located at 42150 Agena Street.
Chair, I would like to recuse myself from this because this is my home.
Okay.
And
All right.
myself.
Well, we will give you a minute to go down there and do your thing. All right. Jaime, may we please have the staff report?
Yes, thank you. So located within the Starlight Ridge community, the project site is generally located approximately 2,000 feet southwest of Rancho California Road and Margarita Road. The residence itself is located at the corner, as you can see at the lower left-hand corner of the screen, at the corner of Agena Street and Alpha Place. Staff analyzed the proposed project and determined that the project meets the development standards for the low-medium density residential district, which situates on a 0.19 acre site. This includes meeting the parking spaces that are required per the development code in chapter 1724-040. We found that it's also consistent with the City of Temecula residential performance standards in the fact that it is an enhancement of physical character. The project provides a balanced aesthetic design with functional development. It's an enhancement that protects property values. It stimulates improvements and maintenance to prevent blight, and it enhances visual appeal. So here, before we go into what is proposed, we'll start a little bit with what's existing. The property is a total of 8,275 square feet. It's a single-family residential tract. There are no proposed modifications to the tract itself or to the lot lines. It is a 941 square foot home. It has a 518 square foot two-car garage. And then jumping into the proposed, it's a total of 2,551 square feet. And this is not inclusive of the ADU. And that number includes the existing 941 square feet. So the ADU itself is 500 square feet, but because of state law, it must be approved ministerially, which means we cannot comment on it, make anything, have anything, any discretionary review with that. So as we look towards the front of the yard, there's a 550 square foot expansion of living space. There's a 191 square foot kitchen expansion as well. At the front, we have a 60 square foot entry porch. And then with all the additions around, it ends up creating a 98 square foot open air courtyard, which is at the center of the house. On the second story, we'll have an 869 square foot new second story addition, along with it, a 52 square foot balcony. So jumping into what the inside of the existing home looks like, again, it's 941 square feet. Here you'll see the living room and dining room area, the kitchen, the 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and the existing garage, which will have no, relocation or changes to that itself. And then jumping onto the first floor with the proposed living area, it's a total of 1,682 square feet on the first floor, and this does not include that 500 square foot ADU I mentioned earlier. There's the kitchen and dining room expansion, the living room at the front yard, 2 bedrooms again, the location of 3 bathrooms, the entry porch, the open air courtyard, and again, that 2-car garage. So as we move up to the second floor, we'll have 869 square feet of living area. With it, an office and bathroom, one primary bedroom with a bathroom as well, and then in front of that, a new balcony. There will also be an additional bedroom. So now we'll get into the architecture of the house. And again, this is located within the Starlight Ridge community, which has a prevalent use of varying California ranch-style homes in this neighborhood. And with that California ranch-style building style form, we see wide-profile buildings. They have an emphasis on porch and gables. This style has low-pitch roof, has large windows, and they incorporate decorative wood or stone accents throughout. So just for juxtaposition, I included a recent image of the existing home. I think it's important to note that the original architecture was, 1970s modern take on California ranch style, much like what the applicant is proposing today, an updated version, a more modern version of that California ranch as well. So as we look at the exterior of the home and the arrows pointing, you'll see within the first square you have a note that says it'll be exterior stucco finish on the main body with a repose gray color. It'll have asphalt shingles finished in dark gray, Eldorado stone at the entry point, and what you see that is on the outside of the future ADU location, Eldorado stone, and then the black trim throughout the fascias around the house. So here are some additional angles of the proposed home. In the top left image, this is a view from the yard as if you were standing from Agena Street. The top right image is the side yard view from the cul-de-sac on Alpha Place, and then the lower images are views from the backyard. So as we look at the angles of the home, I think it's noteworthy as well to mention that the staff review on this residential expansion was looked through with the lens of looking at this as a redevelopment project, and this is because of the original architecture of the neighborhood, which I'll show on the next slide, is not actually compatible with the current residential design guidelines and performance standards in our municipal code today. So in a sense, this is the first of its kind in Temecula's oldest residential tract development. And before I move on, I would like to note that there's one last minute change that was submitted, and that was to the garage door. What was received in your packets was a wooden garage door, and we're now showing a modern opaque garage with style that matches the windows. Okay. So here we see what the neighborhood looks like. On the top left, you can see the Solis residence as we stand on Agena Street facing north towards Alpha Place. Next is the south view standing from Alpha Place and facing Agena Street, which runs east and west. Here we are approximately at the center line of Agena facing east. And lastly, here we are on the center line facing west and the Solis residence on the lower right-hand side of the image there. Note that there are already two-story homes in the neighborhood, including the second house to the north. It's a little difficult to see with these images, but second house to the north has a two-story house, and directly across the street, there's another two-story house, and then to the east, west as well, two houses down, there's another two-story home. So there is a condition of approval that we do need to add. This is just to ensure that the applicant files the notice of exemption and pays the $50 fee for processing that. And then with that, from a CEQA categorical exemption standpoint, this falls under section 15301, class 1 existing facilities. And staff recommends the Planning Commission approve PA 23-0023, subject to conditions of approval.
And there was one change being made to the condition of approval related to the filing fee, if you wanted to put that.
Yes. That did not make it to the slide. Oh, here it is, actually. That's essentially here, the language that would be added.
So staff's recommendation to include this additional condition of approval.
So what is the actual condition on that? Just that they waive the administrative fee?
No, generally, as a matter of course, the conditions usually include this requirement that the applicant must pay the notice of exemption, that $50 fee, so that is paid by the applicant, and that's usually conditioned. It was an oversight that it wasn't included, and so we wanted to include it like any
Okay.
other application.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Anything else, Jaime?
There was some written correspondence, and
Is that what we've been given? Okay. Is there anything else that we haven't been given, or we have it all in front of us?
before the end of the day, I did receive a call from a gentleman expressing some concerns. He may be here to speak, so we could look.
Did he leave an address or anything? Do we have any information, or? I guess we'll wait and see if he's here tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for your staff report?
That concludes my presentation.
Okay, questions for staff, starting with Adam?
So just a couple, what triggers a home remodel coming here? Is it the size of the remodel that is, create the public hearing?
Yeah, so, in the municipal code, there's a series of items that would trigger what is a major modification versus a minor modification. From an administrative staff level, we process dozens and dozens and dozens of them every year. But they're typically additions, not expansions at this scale. What is triggering this project to be at the category of a major modification is the percentage of the square footage that's being added and the fact that it's a second-story addition to the home.
Okay. And then you did know that there's other two-story homes in the area. Do you know what approximate square footage those two-story homes range in, by any chance?
Yeah, just looking at Zillow within the vicinity, and in Starlight Ridge, I found two-story homes were ranging from 1,400 square feet to about 2,000 square feet.
Okay. And this was 24, 25, right?
All in total, without including the ADU, 2,551.
Without them. Okay. Okay, that's my only question for now.
Gary? No question. Okay, I do have a couple of questions. If you can go back to the slide that shows the first level, I want to see the first level and the second level again, or the first floor. Okay. So this area is 1,682, this whole area, correct?
Yes, and not including the ADU, you're correct.
So I know we're not supposed to ask any questions on that, but, okay, I'll wait. Okay, then the second floor, can I look at that again? $869. Okay. Okay, so then the next slide I want to see again is, yeah. So the 500 square foot ADU would be where that stone is? Is that?
Correct.
So, okay. Which is not part of what we're voting on, but that's where that would be. And I want to say that I appreciate the color board, the material boards, because they look so different than the pictures in the packet, right? So that really helps a lot. I'm glad that that's gray and not whatever that, anyway, so that's good. And then the garage, can you go to the garage slide? So is that opaque, is that see-through?
Yeah, it's, I did have some specs that the applicant provided. What is shown here is not 100% accurate because it's a rendering. Unfortunately, with the rendering, it turned out to look a little more reflective, but it will be opaque finish.
So is it see-through?
It will not be see-through.
Okay, that's my question. Okay, let's see. I think that was it that I had. Do you have a question? Okay, go ahead, Gary, first.
Just to be clear, I know we're not considering the ADU at this time, just for my own satisfaction, I know where it will be. Could you just affirm that it's to the right of the facing on? It would be the right?
Correct. So on this image, if you look at the slide, or the, where it's labeled as side yard, where Lene pointed out with the decorative stone finish, and at that corner on the lower level, that's where the ADU will be. So
Okay.
Where the
it's,
stone is. Where the stone is on the house. Can you see that? On the right side.
I see it on the front. Oh, there it is, okay. Yeah, I'm good, thank you,
Oh,
Jaime.
I'm sorry, just one other question. Is there any concern or limitations from the city on overbuilding a unit like this in a particular neighborhood? Or is that strictly up to the applicant and the risk of that, I guess?
no, there is a concern. It's part of the development standards in the residential zone like this, in the LM specifically residential zone, the maximum, it's called the lot coverage, is 35%. So that's how much of a building footprint a single-family home like this can have. And this project is at 33%, so it did not exceed that threshold.
So it's still within that? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, good questions. Any other questions of staff before I open the public hearing? No other questions? Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and I'm going to ask the applicant to come back in and come to the podium. Hello.
Hello. Okay, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'd just like to start off by saying that, my wife and I have lived on their property for about 4 years. This is our first home that we've purchased together after we got married. Our house right now is 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, like you've seen. It's about 30 years old. There is a lot of things that need to be fixed, like we have broken windows, we have the kitchen's falling apart. There's also termite damage along the fireplace. So what we decided to invest and make our future home here, and we want to raise our future family here. So that's why we decided to build it in this manner. This manner is kind of what the sizes are going right now, what the new developments are having. 2,500 square feet is what we are looking at. 4 bedrooms. We have 5 baths, but the two of the baths are half. They're for the outside pool that we want to do in the future, and they're also in the courtyard that you see on the first story. I have worked with staff for about maybe a year to get to this point. So staff has reviewed it. It meets all the development standards. It meets the city design guidelines, and it also has some type of compatibility with the surrounding neighborhoods. I do live in front of a 2-story house. There's a 2-story house in the cul-de-sac behind me. There's a 2-story house 2 houses down from me. When I began to design the house, I looked at architectural style, I looked at roofs, I looked at the pitches, the material, the window sizes, and the design that I came up with matches the community around. So the architectural style is California Ranch. There's a gable roof, so I incorporated nothing but gable roofs. I have a porch that we designed in the front. The materials are, the only thing different around my community is that there isn't that specific stone. This is more of a newer stone. This track almost 30 years ago, so I wouldn't want to propose that type of material now. I want an updated look. I want a more modern look, something that looks very nice, something that's very compatible to Summers Bend, something that's compatible to Red Hawk, the newer developments that have been happening in the last 10 years. I did a survey of my neighborhood, and the houses range from anywhere from 26,055 square feet to 941 square feet, which is the smallest house. Many of these homes in the community have gone through major remodels, 2-story additions, 2-story expansions, single-story additions, and that's how all these houses range from from 1,000, 1,500 square feet, 2,000, 2,500 square feet, and the biggest one is a 2,655 square footage. So most of the community isn't like a newer community. It's not like the Red Hawk or the Summers Bend where all the houses kind of look similar and you can't notice where there's new additions. So our community is a little bit different because it's about 30 years old. So throughout these last couple of 30 years, people have been adding to the front of the house, adding to the side of the house, adding to the second story, adding so on and so forth, which makes the community not be completely alike. So there is a lot of inconsistency, but the major components of the architecture, like the style of the roof, the stucco, the material, is similar, and that's what I incorporate into our project. With that said, like I said, the primary elements are very similar to the neighborhood. The architectural style, also how it goes from the first story to the second story, is very similar also. The house right across the street from me goes directly from the first story to the second story up. And as part of this new addition, I'm also adding a balcony, and I decided to use that balcony to kind of break up the new addition in the front. I think it's more like it's a secondary element in the house, along with the porch that's also there. I know most of my neighbors, and I did go to almost all my neighbors, and I asked them to look at the plans. I asked them for, if they would support the project, and I got 12 neighbors that support the project in writing. They looked at it and we talked. I was at their home. Most of them invited me in. So they did review the project. They said it looks great, and I think you received that in writing. With that said, we've invested a lot of time, and we would like to. We don't want to move anywhere else. We want to invest here, and we want to live in Temecula, and this is why we want to make our dream home. So this is the project before you, and I'd like to answer two questions. Commissioner Reese, you said what are the sizes around the community? So the smallest one is our home, 941, and then the biggest one is 2,665 square feet. That's the largest home in our community. And the garage door will be, you won't be able to see inside. I don't want to see inside, so it'll be very neat. The colors will match the windows. The windows are black. The garage door will be black. It'll have a similar style, and our windows won't be tinted as the garage will. And then with that said, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yes. Fernando, how deep, I know that you had the square footage on the balcony, but how deep is that from the edge to the?
I want to say it's 4 feet.
If I recall the picture, it wasn't,
It's
hard
Can we
to
put-
see.
Can we put that
It's-
picture
it's,
back up, Jaime?
So
Of the-
it's on, or the architectural plans A2.2, the balcony is 4 feet by 10 feet. It's just enough to have 2 chairs there. My wife says she has to drink coffee there, so I had to put it.
Can you put the picture back up, Jaime, of the house, yeah.
One more.
Ye-
Okay, I
that's-
can see it better there in this, on the upper left picture.
That's a pretty realistic picture, and if,
Okay,
there's only enough space for one person, for 2 people up there.
that answers my question, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Adam?
The only other question, and I mean, I mentioned it here as well, is did you give any thought to, to either overbuilding or the impact that is
I
gonna
did.
have? It is an older neighborhood, looking at the street view of stuff, this will definitely stand out as a new
Right.
model, developed home. It sounds like it could be aligned with the size, but just kind of want to get your take on putting
So-
that house there.
So I did 2 things. I did the survey, I did comps, and I also looked at how much I'm actually investing in the house, as opposed to say, hey, instead of investing all this money, buy another house that's already made. My main my main decision that I made was the community. We can buy another home somewhere else, but, we really enjoy our neighbors. We love our neighbors. We get, they come over our house, we go over their house. It's very safe. We leave our cars open. It's really safe. And I've lived, in the last 10 years in a couple different houses, and there's nothing like living in this community. So that's why I want to invest in here. And another thing is, I am not overbuilding because my house would not be the biggest one in the entire community. There are several houses larger than the one I'm proposing, and the comps are there if I ever do one day decide to sell.
But just to be clear, the house, I know the ADU is ministerial, but the 2585 doesn't include the additional ADU that's going
No,
on, right?
the primary house will be 2,551, and then the ADU will be 500 square feet.
So you will have the biggest house.
No, it'll be 2,500.
Well, there'll be two. So there is another ADU also down the street from our home, and that one is about 500 square. I think it's a little more. And I met my neighbor, and I think she did that like about 2 or 3 years ago. And her.
I have to jump in. We have to be very careful. The ADU is not part of the application, should not be considered as part of the overall square footage for the application that's for you tonight. Every home in this neighborhood is eligible to put an ADU on their property ministerially, and you would never see it. So it's just very important that we make that point.
Thank you.
And one more thing, Commissioner. Everything that we designed was within the setbacks, within the building footprint, everything meets the development standards from the city. We did not overbuild it in that aspect, and I believe from my survey that I did and the comps that I did, that we are not overbuilding in the community.
Any other questions? Jaime, can you put the picture back up? So the porch is just what's in front of the front door, correct?
Yes.
Is that what we're considering the porch?
That's the porch,
Okay,
yes.
Okay. I was looking for like something longer, like this porch, so I just wanted to make sure that was it. Okay. And I don't think I have any questions. I think my colleagues asked some good questions, so no other questions? All right, so do we have any public comments at this time?
Did you have any requests to speak?
We haven't received none. We have one letter that we received at 4 o'clock, and that is in the dais before you.
So do you want me to do a summary of the documents that were received that are before you?
Sure, or I can.
Sure.
Either way. Okay. So we received some documents here on the dais, and I counted 10 neighbors. I know you said 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that were in favor of the project.
And then there's 2 letters.
Yeah.
There's 2 letters.
I'm counting those also.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
And then
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I don't think so.
Are there some on the back?
Yeah,
Oh.
there's 2 in the back or 1 in the back.
All right, hold on a sec. 9, 10, okay, 11. is what
And
I
then
count.
1 neighbor is here and is going to speak.
Oh, okay, well, that's what we're asking for public comments right now, though.
So if there's anyone who wants to speak that has not filled out a speaker card, if you can come up and we can get a speaker card filled out for you, and you can speak in either support or opposition to the project.
Okay, so thus far, we have 11 neighbors that are in favor of the project and 1 that is against. That is what I have thus far. So can we have them come up and they can fill it out after? So go ahead and come on up.
Okay,
First
thank you.
speaker. Just make sure you fill out the orange before you
Absolutely.
take off.
My name is Justin Dankel. I live right next door behind the Solis residence.
What is your address? Just so we know for,
42471 Alpha Place.
okay.
I have owned this home for 25 years and raised 2 children and Also, I love this community. I also a member of the community in the larger sense. Go to church here. I have a business here, and I want to point out I like Fernando. He's a great person and an outstanding neighbor. We've helped each other over the years that he's been around, and so none of this is a personal thing. I even will say that I like his design. I just think that it's a very poor design for our neighborhood for multiple reasons. There's been a lot of discussion about the square footage, and yes, the ADU is not a part of this. You guys have to be very careful about how this is addressed. But yes, if you add the 2,500 square feet to the ADU, it would be by like 20% the biggest house in the neighborhood. But that's more of a concern in terms of the fact that it's so much of a different structure also. Most of the neighborhood is massed in a very different sense. And what I mean by massing is that when you view any of the homes in the neighborhood from the street, the first thing that you view or you see is the garage, which is typically a single-story structure, portion of the structure. Further back is where you have the actual residential portion of the home. And then if it is a second story, the second story is set back on top of that first story portion, residential portion. And so what this does is it allows for kind of like airspace. I don't know how else to describe it. Again, viewed from the street, or if you were walking down the street, the structures are set back as you regard the elevation. This structure is exactly the opposite of that. You have a two-story structure in front of the garage, only 16 feet away from, I think 17 feet maybe, away from the right-of-way. This is vastly different than anything in the neighborhood. I think that would just be something that would very much stand out and not be consistent with the design perspective of the neighborhood. Another thing that was recently identified to me that I didn't even realize is almost all of the corner lots in the neighborhood are all single-story homes. And in addition, the corner lot structures themselves are set back into the kind of the back corner, if you will. And what this does is it allows for very large viewing angles if you are in a vehicle and you are approaching any of the intersections. And this is, an aesthetic conversation point, but it's also a safety conversation point. Starlight Ridge, actually just this last couple of years, the city's installed stop signs. So for most of the existence of this subdivision, we did not have stop signs. And that allowed drivers to quite literally roll through intersections legally. Now, there's stop signs now, and this creates a safer neighborhood, and I'm very much in favor of that. But I want you to maybe understand some perspective on the...
Excuse me just a minute. Denise, are you keeping time on this?
I
5 minutes.
I am. I have it.
Okay.
He has more time.
Okay, just let me know.
Yep.
I don't have time here, but I'll try to wrap it up. There's not a whole lot more. But again, this would very much turn the concept that I just described completely around. This structure completely will be in that space that I just described when, if you were pulling out of my cul-de-sac, you would have to come all the way up to the stop sign, in order to be able to see a safe distance to be able to come out of the cul-de-sac. But again, that safety is one part of that conversation, but I think that's an aesthetic part of the conversation as well. If you were to just simply leisurely drive around the neighborhood, you would notice that as you approach intersections, things are just set back, and you can see plenty of yard. I don't know that I want to add a whole lot. I have a letter that summarizes a lot of these thoughts that I'd be happy to drop off with my request to talk. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin. Next speaker, please. State your name and your address, please.
My name is Tony Russell, and I live at 42220 Agena Street. I live in a single-dwelling home, 1,300 square feet.
I'm
I
sorry,
live-
what was your first name again?
Tony Russell.
Tony.
It's IE. The neighbor next door has a two-story house. The people on the corner have a fabulous one-story house, and this gentleman lives across the street, and I don't see why there's a problem having a two-story on that corner. He complains about he doesn't have a view. There's no view except for across the street on the cul-de-sac. And the stop sign is really a bunch of crap. Everybody drives right through them like there's no big deal. You don't see any kids in that neighborhood at all. His grass looks like crap. He hasn't done anything what the HOO has said you're supposed to have for your lawn. And it's an eyesore, even though he's behind the main house on the corner. And this gentleman here, Fernando, he has put a brand-new green hedge around the property, which really looks nice. I don't know why people would think that the house would be really much different. And the garage, you really don't see. I don't know why everybody's making a big deal about the garage. Everybody knows you have to have a garage that shuts and you can't see inside of it. I don't have a wooden garage. I wouldn't want one because they're really out of time, and I wouldn't want to have those whatever they're called, that holds them up and down. I can't remember what I have a garage door. That's all that matters to me. I can't lift it and bring it down anyway. So the garage, you guys are making a big deal about it. It sits back off of the street. It's not on the street. You have to get on the driveway to get into it. I don't know what the big deal is about that. I like the idea of he has two little porches, a porch up on top for him and his wife to sit at, and I don't see why there's an eyesore of anybody seeing anything when there's two stories everywhere, especially if there's one across the street. And they have kids playing, and they have their signs out on the street saying to slow down, because people do drive fast on Agena Street. I have to say that I've seen that myself. I have my dogs, and I'm out there with my dogs, and I'm more worried about what the property looks like. I mean, I've noticed that they have cleaned up the area on the very end of Agena Street, and his yard looks really great also. And everybody else who had a crappy-looking yard is finally getting it to where they're supposed to have a green yard, period. If you don't want a green, you make it desert-looking. I don't know what's the difference, I mean. But I'm just here to say that I approve with what he's planning on to do. It's not an eyesore to anybody's eyes, not even from the people in the cul-de-sac. The people across the way, they're Spanish people, and they speak Spanish, and they play lots of Mexican music, and it's a wonderful little neighborhood. I've been here for 6 years, and it's a great neighborhood, I have to say that. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Here's my
Tony.
piece of paper.
Any other speakers? Okay, come on up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rosa Sanchez, and my address is 42490 Alpha Place. And I'm approved Fernando's new house. I think the neighborhood is going to look beautiful, and I live right across the street from him, and I don't have any problem. I'm fine with that. I just think the neighborhood is going to look nice, and I don't have any problem, and I just happy for him. I approve the new house. I hope I can do it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Thanks for taking the time. Anyone else wanting to speak?
Greetings, Chair and Commissioners. I am one of the applicants as well, as I am Fernando's wife. My name is Michelle Rodriguez, and I have lived at 42150 Agena Street since July 2019. When Fernando and I first chose to come to Temecula, we obviously were very enamored by the characteristics of this city, but more so because we had just gotten married. I got a job in San Diego, he got a job in Riverside, and Temecula was a very happy medium for us. We unfortunately hadn't had a lot of luck in finding a place to live in, as we were getting outbid by other buyers that had been in the home buying ecosystem for much longer than we had been in. But one day while at work, Fernando calls me and he says, guess what? I'm here with a realtor at this tiny little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. You don't have time to look at it, but trust me. And I said, okay, I'll do what I can, and I'll trust you, and we'll see what we can accomplish. He promised me that this would be my dream house, even though the house needed a ton of work. I trusted him, and here we are 4 years later. We've made multiple remodels to the house, as he mentioned, termites, fixtures that were falling, that are still falling to this moment. We've recently updated our restroom as well. But more importantly here is we've very much fallen in love with the community where we live and that he serves. It's not rare to see us walking at night through Starlight Ridge at 10:30 p.m. We can go to the grocery store before it closes at 11. That's the level of safety that we feel. We feel that this would be a great place to continue having a family. Unfortunately, our attempts haven't been as successful, but we do want to have children, and we think that we need a little bit more space. Fernando and I have been there. It's a little bit tight, maybe a little too close for comfort at times, husband and wife dynamic sometimes. But it would be nice to be able to have a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. We really see our family growing here and continuing to serve this community and being with our neighbors. We get along with them very well. So with that, I just hope that you would give us this opportunity to build the dream home that we've been working so hard for and have sacrificed so much. The end project will be more than a renovated 2-story house that sits on a corner lot. It will serve as proof of what can be accomplished with hard work and sacrifice, and we hope to inspire others to take on their homeowner dreams as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. Any other speakers? Hello?
Hello, I'm Cisco Heikala. I live on Alpha Place. Actually, I tried to send this email, but it failed, so I'll just read it. My property is facing 42150 Agena Street property. From a side view in the Alpha Place cul-de-sac, a single-story home provides a good panoramic view from my home. I fear a 2-story house would be detrimental to all the homes on Alpha Place properties. I believe it would just might bring down our values. I sincerely hope you will consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Siska, you said? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. We did receive your letter, so thank you. We have that in front of us. Any other speakers? If you'll just make sure and fill out an orange speaker form when you're done, that'd be great.
I can do that.
Go
My
ahead
name's
and
Robert
give us
McCarthy.
your name and address.
I live on Cosmic Drive.
Come a little closer to the mic, please.
I'm a resident of Starlight Ridge, Cosmic Drive, 42244.
432 what?
44.
Okay.
As a resident,
Your
I have
name?
Robert McCarthy.
Okay.
As a resident, my only concern is I've been in the construction business for a long time. The roads in Starlight Ridge are really cracked, and we have a lot of potholes. So if they're going to be doing construction and have a lot of big trucks coming down the road, there'll be some road maintenance that's going to need to be done. So that's my concern as a citizen.
Okay.
I'm also on the HOA board, and Fernando has an application in with us, and we will be meeting at the end of the month to review his plan.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Robert. Okay, do we have anybody else that wants to speak out there? Nope. Going once? Oh, yeah. If there's nobody else that wants to speak, we'll invite the applicant up for a rebuttal.
I'd like to address the 4 comments that were against the project. I am not a big fan of the garage being a primary element of the home. You know, the home should be the primary element, as, you know, that should be what stands out. The homes in the Starlight Ridge are doing that. They are designed in that manner, but as we look at the city design guidelines, that is discouraged. That is a design element that is discouraged in the city design guidelines, that the garage is the primary element in the house. So when I was designing the house, I brought the house forward so that the garage would be more back. Now, also, another comment was setbacks. So there's a safety concern that my neighbor Justin had, which is safety is very important in the neighborhood. So the stop sign, from where the stop sign is, I don't know if you can pull up the site plan, but so from the face of the curb, you have a 12-foot right-of-way. I'm not sure if it's 12 or 10, but you have a 12-foot right-of-way. And then after that, that's my property line. From that property line, the house is set back 15 feet. And it's the same on both sides. So we have an estimated 27 feet, 25 to 27 feet from the face of the curb. So that is enough space for a car to pull up even before the stop sign and be able to see
Hold
all
on,
the
we're
way.
going to try to pull that up. Then you can explain it. Well, okay, now, maybe go ahead and say that again.
So the stop sign is I don't have a laser, but the stop sign is located in between where it says 7.77 and 24.29. That's where the stop sign is located.
Can you show us that, Jaime? Do you have ability to do that?
That's where the stop sign is located.
Oh, right there.
Now, from that, we have about 25 to 27 feet to the edge of my house, the proposed house. So I feel that 27 feet is enough space for a car to pull up, pull around, to be very safe. You can see right through it. That box that's in front of the hashed area where all the plants are, that's just grass, so that's a shade. So the perimeter of the house my point would be is that it would be 25 to 27 feet set back from the face of the curb. Another concern, I think that's it. And also, I'm sorry, one more, the setback. So all that second story, the second story across from my house does not have a setback. It goes from the first story to the second story. And that is similar design that goes around all the second stories. The second design that was from the original track has the garage more to the front and the house to the back, but the first story goes straight up to the second story, which is very similar to
And the
my design.
balcony acts as kind of a setback,
The
right?
balconies, I incorporated that to break up the massing.
Right.
Because, yeah, it would be 30 feet wide with nothing in there. So that's why I did incorporate a balcony with post, with a different style roof, and also another porch on the first story to break up that massing. And I also have furred out walls on the first story with stone to match the stone on the porch. And then this design is very similar in occasions down the street. There's also 2-story houses that on the next cul-de-sac over, there is a 2-story house with a balcony on the second story. On the other side of the street, also on Cosmic, there's also a 2nd-story house with a balcony too. So all the balconies are kind of like a new element that when people remodeled the house, they added the balcony. So something very similar to what I want to do.
Okay, thank you. Any
That's it.
questions for the applicant? Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for answering those questions for us. And I think if there's no other speakers, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And I think the applicant needs to step out for a minute. Okay. All right. So I would like to hear from my colleagues first, and then I have some things to say.
And before you get started, I wanted to just note that the vote for tonight, because we do not have 4 commissioners, so we have 3 only counting towards the quorum, so we would need a majority of the quorum to approve the project if you choose to approve it. So that means a 2-to-1 vote would be an approval in this case.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Adam, you want to start? Or Gary? Gary, you ready?
Excellent presentation by all involved. It looks to me like the applicant has reached out to his neighbors and has communicated well what he wants to do. It seems like it's well received, at least by the paperwork that we have in front of us. We did hear some things tonight about not maybe agreeing with it, but not a lot. So just wanted to note that. I actually applaud the applicant for seeking his and her neighbors to make sure they're okay with it. I'm sure they probably had input, and I don't know if they considered it or not, but appreciate the communication. As far as I can see, it may not be exactly what I would do, but it looks like we have established that the project would be consistent with our zoning right now, which is what we demand in this city, consistent with our zoning. It does meet the parking requirements. It does meet the residential performance standards. It's a California ranch style, which is what the neighborhood is supposed to be, and probably of less significance, but certainly significance. The project is in compliance with CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act, which regulates all development in the state. So it looks to me as if the applicant has lined up support. He's also followed the city's direction when it comes to development standards and that particular set of requirements. There was one comment made regarding single-story homes on corners, and I know that consistent with this commission, we have expressed a big interest in making sure that we had single-story homes on corner lots, on new developments. But this isn't a new development, and it is still has to meet approval standards. So that's a little wrinkle in there that I wasn't anticipating, but I don't know that if that's that huge of an issue or not. As far as home values, I would think that ultimately the neighborhood would benefit by this type of an expansion, and certainly it certainly improves upon, I think, maybe not the appearance, but certainly the capability of housing within that community. So I do appreciate the turnout tonight. It's nice to hear that our people are interested and making sure that they follow these things. I will say that the last couple of years, the state of California has really put a lot of conditions on development, particularly as it relates to housing. And what used to be a field where planning commissions had a lot more discretion and maybe subjective ability to evaluate things, it is more and more a legal requirement that we simply have objective and no subjective requirements when it comes to that type of thing. In other words, people have to know what's expected of them in plain black and white, so they know what to do. So I think that has played into it as well. But right now, those is what I've noticed about the project. So I will turn it over to Adam.
Thank you, Gary. Well said. Adam?
Great points. I was actually going to make a couple similar ones. I do believe the applicant's done a great job at due diligence. I love the fact that we've got speakers here on both sides. We can hear from the neighborhood as well as the written correspondence that we've got sent in. A lot of great questions. Thank you for the presentation as well. For those that don't know, my background is real estate, so I've got some ideas of what we are looking at and addressing some of those questions. One of the unique things with Temecula being a newer type city is, they mentioned a 30-year or 40-year-old home is one of the older ones. Well, that's a very new home in other areas and looking at. But there is a big push, both in the state of California and nationwide. I actually just got back from a conference of, kind of revitalizing some of the neighborhoods and the impact that one house then triggers another, So seeing something like this, does it inspire? I mean, there was one neighbor that mentioned, hopefully she could do her own. Does it inspire some, maybe not everyone's going to remodel their complete home, but, let's clean up the yard a little bit or kind of do some other things. I think there's some positive traction that could grow from that. Personally, I kind of agree with you. I would be a little concerned on the overbuilt or overdevelopment within that area, but like you stated, it fits the guidelines of the city. It's the applicant's choice. You cannot put a price on comfort and value of your own home and your own community, and I think that's, if there's a risk, the applicant's clearly aware of that risk and willing to take that on by developing the house there. So I do appreciate, again, all the communication and great discussion. We don't get this very often, so it is nice to have, but I do think they've done a good job demonstrating their thought throughout this, as well as working with the city for, I believe you said, about a year. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. I appreciate both of my colleagues and their comments. One question I did have that I didn't ask earlier was about if they had an HOA. So apparently they do have an HOA. So that also is another way of, being able to, for HOA to weigh in on this too. And I very much appreciate everyone who's taken the time to come here tonight and those who have spoken, because I know it's not easy to take time away from your home at night. And it does mean a lot to us to hear that. I too appreciate the applicant's, obvious integration into the neighborhood, to be able to talk to all of these neighbors and speak with them and have plans for them to see and really, I think that helps a lot. Even if you're not happy with it, you've had some prior knowledge to it, right? And I think that always helps. I also, with a couple of speakers and with Michelle, I really feel like this will be an asset to the neighborhood. And I agree with Adam and Gary in that when people see something like this and it looks better, it motivates people to do a little bit better with their own area and their own property. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I have been out there a couple of times to look at the neighborhood. So I know what it looks like. There are two-story homes out there. It will look different because it will look new and it will look very nice. But like I said, I think that it might have the ability to motivate others to do some things to their own homes. And I think, as Gary said, the applicant is in compliance. And that's what we have to look at foremost, not whether we like the house or like the color, but we have to look at whether it's compliant. And that's what we're voting on tonight. And I think also with my colleagues, I think the actual home without the ADU was about 2,000, right? 2,000 and change. Is that correct, Jaime?
2,551.
Without the ADU?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that clarifies that for me. Okay, so anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. And I think that unless there's any other comments from my colleagues, that we can make a motion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and we accept staff's recommendation and approve item number
PA 230023.
There you go, PA 23-0023.
With
I'll
the revision to the condition of approval of adding the condition that was set forth tonight.
Yes, what you said, with the additional conditions of approval.
And I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Gary Watts and a second by Adam Ruiz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we don't have anyone else here to oppose it, so 3-0. Motion passes.
And if we can just take a moment to bring Commissioner Solis back into the room.
Okay, we're going to move to item 3, planning application numbers PA 22-0722, a modification application to allow revisions to an existing commercial site consisting of facade and site improvements, and PA 23-0130, a conditional use permit to allow for a drive-through facility. The project is located at 27425 Inez Road, and Eric has our staff
And
presentation.
before I like to recuse myself, I have my office literally next door to this project, so I'd like to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. You're not going to get paid for tonight. Okay,
Thank you. PA 22-0722 and PA 23-0130 consists of a modification application to allow revisions to an existing commercial structure and the site, as well as a conditional use permit to allow for a drive-through facility. The intended use will be a coffee shop. The project is located here in the red boxed area you see before you. It's generally located there on the northwest corner of Inez Road and Tower Plaza North. From a site plan perspective, the project site was actually originally a bank that had a drive-through component with it. As part of the project, access to the site and access to the drive-through and how it functions, that's going to remain unchanged. The drive-through meets the stacking requirements in the development code. It's also important to note that right now along Inez, there's a section of the sidewalk directly right in front of this project. It was never completed. So you have sidewalk, then just a bunch of grass, and then the curb return starts again. So there's a large swath that was never done. As part of the project, they're going to go ahead and finish that up for us. So that'll help improve the pedestrian experience in that area. We'll take a look here at the site plan. Here's how you enter the site. Here's the entrance to the drive-through. Again, it remains unchanged. This is that area that's going to receive the additional sidewalk. They're going to go ahead and finish up. Architecturally, they're actually going to shrink the size of the existing building, approximately 13% or so, and it's going to have a completely new architectural design. We're going to go for more of a modern design. What I've done here is, I'm sure you're all familiar with the building, but just to refresh your memory a little bit, just included a couple photos of it. It's the kind of tan building that you see here. It was built some time ago. It's obviously aged. So that's what it looks like now. And then here we'll go through the 2D elevations. Then he provided some 3D elevations as well, which we'll look at next. But here we have the east elevation, east and west elevation, excuse me. North elevation, south elevation. We'll take a look at some of these 3D renderings. This is if you're looking to the east as you enter the drive-through area. You see they're putting a patio place out front as well. There's another angle. And this is what you see from Inez, kind of wraps around the drive-through there. Landscaping-wise, they're going to bring all the landscaping up to current standards. They're going to meet the water efficiency ordinance, all those types of things. This is some of the plant material they've chosen. We can see here how that's all going to be laid out. They're going to keep a lot of the existing trees. That's nice. As far as the conditional use permit is concerned, the drive-throughs require CUPs. As I mentioned earlier, the drive-through meets all the development code requirements for a drive-through. Things such as the stacking distance, the width of the drive-through aisle through the turns, things like that. From a seeker perspective, staff believes the project is exempt per section 15332, class 32, as it is an infill development project. And based on the information I've just presented, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the project based on the required findings and subjected to the draft conditions of approval. This concludes our presentation. I'm available for questions. We have the applicant in the audience if you'd like to chat with them as well. Thank you.
Questions for staff? Adam?
Depending if it's a staff or applicant question. You mentioned the drive-through. There's not a wall there now, right? That new wall design is part of the new proposed drive-through?
Actually, if you look at the site, it's kind of sunk down a little bit compared to Inez. So there's a little bit of a wall there. They're going to redo it and make it look nicer and update it.
And maybe it's just a picture. It just looks tight.
You talking about?
Yeah. It just looks really
Like
tight. And
this
maybe,
area?
and maybe because it's sunken in the wall and not, more of a traditional curb type of an entrance, but it just looks very tight.
Well, that is the existing drive-through that has been there and functioning well throughout, I think, a few decades from when this thing was built, when it was a bank. It does meet all the stacking requirements. It meets the minimum development standards, so I didn't have a way to have to make it wider.
Okay.
Gary, questions?
I assume that the insignia on the wall there is the applicant?
I'm sorry, what?
The
Yeah, Starbucks.
little
Oh,
logo
yeah.
there?
I said it earlier in the beginning, yes, it's going to be a Starbucks.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that. I must have been asleep.
Oh, I'm
or
sorry.
something. No, okay.
Yeah, it's Starbucks.
Yeah, actually, I can attest, the windows you're looking at right there on the left is where the safe deposit boxes used to be in that bank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do have a question on, can you show the slide again of the sidewalk that they're going to finish? Or where that is?
Yeah, hang on 1 second.
So it's actually on Inez.
Yes, it's going to be
Okay.
right here. Let me show you. Kind of this area right through here. That's going to be a new sidewalk. Right now, it's just grass, part of the landscaping up
Yeah.
to the curb.
Yeah. Yeah, I went out there a couple of times and, well, I can say that later. But anyway, yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. That was the only question I had. It does look kind of tight, doesn't it, when you look at it? But I guess it was tight before, right? Okay, any other questions of staff? No? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come up, please. Welcome.
Hi, Chairperson, Commissioners, thank you very much. My name is Mark Cooper. Do you need my address?
No, you're fine.
I'm with CCG Yanez, which is the developer landlord in this situation. There's some representatives here from Starbucks tonight that are going to come up and talk or answer questions. I want to give you a little perspective from the developer and landlord standpoint on the property. So you can't see this, but on the back of my neck, there's going to be some hairs stand up here in just a minute. When we talk about Temecula, Rancho and Yanez, and Starbucks. And the reason I want you to understand that is we think this is a very nice use for this particular building. The dynamic with landlords and tenants are when we typically find a building that we want to put a tenant in, excuse me, there's a back and forth which starts with us saying we think the building is worth this. It's not, it's a great location, it's okay. But tonight, there's a couple of guys here from Starbucks, and when I say Temecula, Rancho California has, and Starbucks, the hair is standing up on the back of their necks too, so we're past all of that. The point of this is, and I think the presentation, we're very proud to be part of this project, and that's all I really wanted to say. Michael Farragala is the architect that did all the fine work that you saw, and he will be here for questions about the drive-through and other things. I'm going to step out.
Okay. Oh,
Yes.
yes, Gary has a question for you.
What's the tenant directly to the northwest of this proposed project?
It was a
Northwest.
coffee. At one time, it was a coffee. I don't know, and I'm
These
sorry,
are the
one of my
two
sons here.
that are right next to it, Urban Island and.
Yeah, it's
Adobe
a something or other tea shop.
Adobe Tea.
Yes, and then right next to that is a Filipino restaurant.
Urban Island.
The coffee shop left.
Okay,
It was a bean coffee roaster shop.
very
It's
good.
gone.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Come on up. Thank you.
Hello, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be in front of you today. And I am the architect of record that designed this renovation. From an architecture standpoint,
What is your name?
My name is Michael Farragala.
Okay.
Yeah. And from an architectural standpoint, I always like to see how we can repurpose buildings, and especially in this day and age that we're in right now, and how materials are so expensive and sourcing of components and whatnot. So this was a great opportunity to see how we can repurpose an existing structure and give it a new life, and also see how we can provide something for the community that the community could potentially use here. And also elevate the experience or the aesthetic of the building from the exterior to better integrate that into the immediate community. And so by doing so, I understand, post-COVID and whatnot, and people want to have the fresh air and the ability to be able to sit outside and whatnot. And so it was a larger building for a coffee shop use. Again, I'm just the architect. I'm not necessarily only doing Starbucks, but I do all other users. But I look at that data, and obviously there is no outdoor seating experience, yet there was such a large building. So we thought, okay, why don't we try to save most of the building as much as we can, reduce the square footage, for the operation to be able to operate on the interior, but also allow for that additional square footage to now become an outdoor seating experience for the community. And after also speaking with Starbucks, it was interesting to me that this would be more of a community store, and so I wanted to introduce and incorporate diverse types of seating. So you'll notice that there is some lounge seating on the exterior, some two tops.
Can we put the picture up while he's talking about
Not
it?
sure if we have a floor plan of the interior, exterior. Yeah, so in this view here, you can kind of see that outdoor seating experience. What we did is we're building this new outdoor metal canopy that will provide some, semi-shelter or semi-shade, because it will not be fully enclosed. It would allow for some natural light to come in. I mean, we're in Temecula, Southern California, so. So we do have the diverse seating here, and I don't know if we have a view of the interior or not.
I don't have the interior.
Was that? Sorry?
I don't have the interior.
Oh, okay, no worries.
So the interior has seating also?
The interior will have smaller community tables, like 4 top community tables for the students that want to come and study and whatnot, as well as some additional 2 tops and things, diverse types of seating on the inside. And so my idea was, okay, this is not a drive-through only, and I'm sure you guys have seen those. This is more a store that is tailored to the community, to service the community. There were obviously a lot more issues with the existing building from an accessibility standpoint. The paths of travel to the entry or to the building, the trash enclosure was a bit run down, it's further away. And so we took the initiative to modernize the site, bring in new vegetation that meets the current codes, as well as rebuilding a new trash enclosure, providing the path of travel to it, making it as accessible as possible. As a matter of fact, there is no path of travel from that old bank to the street. And obviously, as you know, if we're building a new structure, we got to provide a accessible path of travel from the public right-of-way to the access. So we are building a whole new ramp all the way up to the street, as well as updating the sidewalk to really integrate.
Do you have a picture of that, Eric?
So the site plan would show the entire, right there.
It's right here.
So you'll be able to see that from the patio, you go out towards the parking, and then you're able to,
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. So you go down towards the parking, but then you're able to cross over the drive-through lane, and then you're able to go up the ramps all the way up. They're not necessarily ramps, they're more of sidewalks, but because of the slope is being at a little bit above over 5%, then we call them ramps. But yeah, so you would have that direct path of travel now to the public right-of-way. So repurposing an existing building, yes, reducing the square footage a little, but I think it's to the advantage of the community here. One thing I would like to add actually, if you look at the existing photos, you will notice that there are multiple overhangs that have multiple columns. You can see there. And what those columns were doing is we're really impeding into the drive-through lane, not allowing us to have a good vehicular maneuverability around the site. What I've done, actually, I've taken all of that out, and I actually enlarged the drive-through lane more to the inside. So we're not necessarily to the street side, because obviously we have that retaining wall that we can't really do much with. But we did increase the drive-through lane to 12 feet and allow for the correct turning radiuses to make the turn all the way around.
What was it before?
It was 11 feet.
Okay.
It was 11 feet, and the turning radiuses did not really work around the turn. And we do understand that there is higher volume of customers that want to go through that drive-through lane, larger cars, smaller cars. So we definitely bring that into our traffic engineer, have them look at the turning radiuses. Our civil engineers also looked at it. So we actually did, and this is why we have civil involved in this project, where we did grow that a little bit, and we also adjusted all the turning radiuses all the way around. So it does work for even the larger lifted cars that would typically want to go through the drive-through lane so they don't jump the curbs. So that was definitely addressed here.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
The picture we're looking at on the bottom there,
Yes.
that's the driveway that goes to the west that enters into the shopping center, correct?
That's correct. So I believe that picture is taken from the vehicular ingress into the center. Correct.
Right, so the Del
Correct.
Taco would be right
Behind you.
behind, yes.
Correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's any pedestrian sidewalk
There
that
is none
leads
right now.
into the center, right?
That is none, correct.
Right.
And so that's something that we are incorporating here.
Through the ramp system, you said, right?
Exactly.
But there would not be any sort of sidewalk access along that entrance road because there isn't one now.
Along which side, I'm
The
sorry?
entrance road, that's just what we're looking for, where we're taking the picture?
Yeah, so that picture right now shows what it is before, but after, it will be the
But-
sidewalk there.
So the ramp will be below?
It will be in that vegetative buffer right now that you see
Okay.
there in that picture.
All right, so, okay, very good. So that will take the place, lack of a better word, of a sidewalk?
In lieu, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Yes, Adam?
And then just going back to the drive-through, sorry to kind
Sure.
of pick on that, but
Yeah.
you mentioned that's a retaining wall, that height and everything, that's what's there already, or that's a higher wall?
That is there is an existing retaining wall along the side, but it's just a block wall right now. So what we are doing is we're increasing the size of it just slightly, and then we're replastering it to match the new finishes of the building, just so they all kind of speak to each other.
But you've opened it up on the inside.
We
by that
opened it up
additional
on the
front.
inside, correct?
Because, I mean, you did make the comment that I would have made too.
Yeah.
Cars that were driving through the bank before have gotten much larger, and Starbucks in general just seems to have a very
Yes.
popular drive-through. And I'd hate that wall to impede people from getting around over there, so I think that's sometimes where that lower curb, even if they're not hitting the curb, but the front end car doesn't hit, but if,
Oh, gotcha.
you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, just on that.
I totally understand
on
what
that
you're
tight
saying.
spot.
Yes, so having a wider lane of 12 feet, and then in front of that retaining wall, we actually have an 8-inch lip. So it becomes more of a wheel guide. So before you hit the wall, you kind of, you get that, in a sense, so. But,
What are those cars
The old
called?
curb feelers, That was my only question, thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll invite Starbucks representatives up, please. Thank you. Michael, right? Yes. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. My name's Ben Lefebvre. I'm a representative with Starbucks.
What was your first name again?
Ben.
Ben, okay.
Just set words. There we go. I don't know how much I can add to what Michael's done. He's obviously the expert in terms of refinement of our plan here. But I can just tell you that there's been a tireless effort on behalf of our team, including our operators who run all of our stores across the Temecula area and in the Inland Empire, to really make this something that serves the community as a primary focus, and that fits within our broader portfolio of stores so that each kind of has its own niche within the community. So I just wanted to express my excitement and my appreciation for your review and consideration of this project, and I hope that we see it become a reality. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, I just have a question. So how many Starbucks stores are in Temecula?
I believe there are currently 10 stores. Wow. Yeah, and they're all very different.
Where's the nearest one from this one?
The nearest would probably be on Old Town, down in Old Town. So
Okay.
it's just on
Right.
the corner as you are kind of entering the main strip.
Right.
On the right side there. That's a cafe. It's a legacy store. It's been there quite some time. And we actually have a newer store up Rancho, California, about a mile, which is a newer drive-through. And
Off of off of Margarita, right? Is that
yes.
the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would just like to also point out that our growth is driven by the demand and that customer and community support. So we're excited to be able to serve that with this new store. And each time we build one, we learn from all those surrounding it. So we're very excited.
That's a lot of coffee. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're
Any
aw-
questions?
You're aware that there's a occasional transient population that exists around that area and prepared to
Correct.
deal with that?
Yeah, and I can tell you that this is, I would say, a concern, less in this instance, but more a consideration that's always present for us when we go into design for these types of projects. It is something that is always under discussion, how we're going to mitigate for that. But we still don't want to take away that seating element in instances such as this, where we feel that generally maybe that kind of concern is less than we see in other areas. So I think the community would appreciate a nice patio. Temecula has beautiful weather. And also the interior seating. We design it in a way that partners can manage it safely and securely.
And I know you don't operate, you're here for other
Correct,
reasons.
correct.
but,
I don't want to
But I
overspeak.
do hope that the eventual operator has pre-thought into what happens when there's a confrontation out on that area between a customer and somebody who just wants to hang around and live in the bushes down right over the hill. So, I mean, we in Temecula really try to deal with that issue and help people if they need help. And that area, I know they're down there. So it would just behoove, I think, Starbucks to, I know you consider that in your operational considerations, but just ahead of time to go, what are we going to do? Because it's rare, but it happens in Temecula that unfortunately you will be confronted once in a while by someone that, for lack of better words, is outside the mainstream. But anyhow, you're aware of that, so I appreciate your candor. Thank you.
Part of the community involvement is that, again, not to speak too much with my operator hat on, but our operations team has close relationships with really all city departments as a matter of functioning well, as a neighbor to other businesses and also just within the community. So usually there's a very close relationship with the police force, and an open line of communication that we try to foster.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Of course.
Adam, anything? Okay. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant or architect or Starbucks? No? Do we have any public comments?
There are no.
No public comments, okay. I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up for discussion for my colleagues. Do we have any discussion?
All my questions have been answered.
Okay.
Yep, no additional.
Okay, so as I said, I went out there and this will be great to have a new building there. I think it will really help that area and hopefully help the situation, with the homeless situation down there too, of having something that looks nice. That area, it's amazing that there's 10 Starbucks already in Temecula. But you go, wow, I guess we need more. But it's, anyway, I think it's a nice looking building. I do have a concern with that drive-through also. So I'm glad they're making that wider. If they could make it even wider, probably be great. I'm glad that there's a entrance to the street and then that sidewalk will be finished also. Anyway, I think anything would be an improvement there, but this is a really nice improvement, and so I would be in favor of it. Do we have anybody that wants to make a motion?
Yeah, I will move the staff's recommendation approval of plan application number PA 22-0722.
I will second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Adam, a second by Gary, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And notice that Commissioner Solis is recused, and we have Bob Hagel's absent, so 3-0. Motion passes. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and invite Mr. Solis back in the room for the remainder of the meeting, whatever's left. All right, thank you. Thank you to the applicant and everybody here tonight. All right. Okay. This has been a riveting meeting. So now we have time for commissioner reports. Adam?
Just something real quick. As I mentioned, I've been on a couple of conferences over the last couple of weeks for our state and national association, but there was a big presentation that seemed to gather a lot of questions and interest, and it has to do with something called Complete Streets. And the idea is that a street or communities developed that would allow for pedestrians, bikes, and cars. And it was just kind of unique to see that as this new concept, yet I feel that that's been something that we've made an effort to do for quite some time, and being able to share that was kind of cool. Temecula's made its way onto the map, but things like that, it was also nice to be known for something additional. So I just thought that was a cool comment to share from a national conference.
I like the name of that, Complete Streets. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I can try to find, there was a whole report and study and everything that's been done, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool to see that.
Yeah.
Gary, anything?
I do not have a report tonight.
Fernando?
I do not have a report.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will just say that, and I did share this at the last city council meeting in my report, but I was able to attend the memorial service, not memorial service, I don't know what you would call it, remembrance of Officer Kent Hennegart, that it's been 30 years, which is amazing, and seeing his wife and 2 daughters, and how that, I remember how that affected the community. And to lose one of our own who lived here, and his wife was pregnant, 2 months pregnant, and so his daughter never met her dad. Anyway, I loved the fact that our city, that's history, right? I think that's really important in a city to remember our history and to honor those who have given to our history. And so anyway, I was really proud of our city for doing that. Thought that was the police force was there, fire department, they had the huge flag, I love that, that's, anyway, and I have a really good friend who has moved from the area now, but she was a police officer with Kent Hennegart and was very close to him, so I was able to take pictures and send that all to her. And so anyway, I just, was a great event to be to, and also the rod run. I hit the rod run for the first time ever. Is that terrible? It's a little bit terrible, but I was there, and I was there for cruise night, so that was kind of cool. And we saw our mayor and mayor pro tem cruise against each other. That was exciting. So, all right, if we don't have anything else on commissioner reports, subcommittee reports. Okay, I actually have one. I'm going to keep talking, apparently. So Adam and I are on the hospital subcommittee, and I'm first going to have Luke share what is proposed, what the hospital is proposing.
Yeah, just a quick summary. So the proposal includes a 3rd bed tower. So there's 2 already approved, so there'd be a 3rd bed tower as part of it, an expansion to the ER, a parking structure, moving the helipad from where it is now to the top of the parking structure, 2 medical office buildings. Medical office is already allowed, but they have some changes to the locations. They have some options for their medical office building, and a behavioral health hospital, a 120-bed behavioral health hospital. So that's what it includes.
Thank you. So we were given a presentation on that, and we suggested to them that community outreach would be important. So they're working on a date for that, to have a community forum for the community to have a voice in this. So when that date is set, I'm sure Luke will let us know, and we can let people in our neighborhoods and everybody know so that they can have a voice in this, because this is quite an addition to the hospital that we need to be aware of and learn all about. We're also, they have another facility in Chino that's apparently, I don't know if it's similar, but I don't know that it's as big, but they have so I know Adam and I probably will be going on that tour to see that facility and to speak to others in the community in Chino and how that's been an impact on their city. So I think that will be open.
Yeah, it'll be open to all planning commissioners. You'll see an invite come through to you from Luisa out of the city manager's office, who's organizing it. City council is also invited, and I think all of them have expressed interest in going. So that's going to be happening. We're trying to get it scheduled for June. sometime in June.
Okay, so thanks, Luke. Did you want to add anything, Adam?
Maybe not add, but just emphasize the town hall and community engagement. I mean, that there's been a lot of social media engagement, there's been a lot of outside engagement and questions and concerns about what's going on, and, you know, we had a lengthy discussion with them there as well. So when these town halls do happen, for anyone listening, watching, take advantage, you know, just be able to participate, share your concerns, share what your thoughts are on it, hear the information firsthand rather than second, third, fourth hand, so that when time comes and we're looking for input, that we can get your thoughts directly from, as a result of that town hall, I guess.
Gary?
I don't need to hear tonight, but I'm looking forward to hearing more about a better definition or fleshing out of the behavioral
yes.
thing. So look forward to that.
Yeah, and also, I think both Adam and I are looking at the impact on the city. You know, what kind of impact would that be to the city? So that's what we're looking at too, as we continue to study it. Okay, Community Development Director, which would be our Deputy City Manager and
That's right.
our, you know, the king here.
King. Oh, man.
For
Set
lack
the
of a better
expectation. This better
word.
be a really good report.
Better be really good.
Yikes. Complete streets. You mentioned complete streets. Commissioner Ruiz, the city has a long track record of having complete streets, particularly in the last 10 to 15 years. All the specific plans require that, you know, those elements. It's not called out specifically like complete streets, but we do have a track record of that. And just so happens that we had, just this week, was it this? Yeah, just this week, we had a kickoff meeting with our consultant to formalize the complete streets process and elements for the general plan. So right now we have a process for developing streets and, you know, including all the elements, but this would be an actual plan that would be used by our friends in Public Works to take all the guesswork out. So whenever a street is developed or maintained, if there's a slurry seal or there's a full grind and replace or any other kind of maintenance or a road diet or whatever it is, the CIP folks will have a checklist of everything that needs to be included to make the streets complete. So eventually we'll expand the complete street concept not only to the areas that have specific plans, more, you know, newer specific plans, but to all the streets in the city over time. So I just it was kind of serendipitous that you brought that up, and we had that meeting just this week as part of the general plan. So, and then finally, next Thursday, at 9 a.m., we have our annual budget workshop with the city council over in the conference center. It's always a very important conversation with the city council on their budget priorities, and they scrutinize the proposed budget that the city team puts together. So if you can make that, it's always good to be there and watch that conversation. If not, it will be recorded and you can watch after that. But just want to let you know. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and yeah, the 4th of July parade too. You guys have that? No.
Yeah.
It's just, okay. Yeah, so make sure if you want to go, you get an RSVP so you can get into the VIP area and watch the show. All right.
That I need, how many people? Oh, yeah. What about, like, community services has these cute little golf carts, and we're always stuck on a hot bus. So I don't know what's going on here. Is there anything we can do about that? Master King.
See, I see now I see what you're doing. To your advantage. Yeah, I'll check in on that. We'll find out what's going on. And you guys want to be on golf carts? Is that what I'm hearing?
We want to be treated equally.
Oh, equally.
All inclusive.
Okay.
I will tell
Fair
you, if you didn't
enough.
know, the community service commissioners each decorate those carts, so they're cute by design. To just FYI, but yeah, the golf carts would be kind of cool. They're always fun. Yeah. We could.
I'm making an official note right now to make sure that you're treated
That's
equally
good.
and have access to golf carts at the parade.
Yeah.
All right.
Equal, not equity, just saying.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Public Works, are you representing Ron tonight? Or are you taking Ron's place?
Not that I'm aware of. But,
Okay.
I just wanted to relay a message from Pat Thomas, who's the Director of Public Works, and Ron, who isn't here, who's now our Assistant Director of Public Works. But, so a couple of things. French Valley Interchange Phase 2, as you're all aware, has started. They are going to start clearing and grubbing in early June. And our target completion date is February 2025. And for next Tuesday at the council meeting, there's a lot of activities. First is the I-15 congestion relief project is on the agenda for a plans and spec and authorize for bid. So we hope to award the contract in the summer and construction to start in the fall. It is an 8-month project from the start. I have a photo so I could share this with you. But really, most important, it's Public Works Week next week. So it starts on Monday, and a proclamation is going to be done on Tuesday at the council meeting. That's all I have.
So on the I-15,
Yes.
are those the,
It's actually northbound on the I-15 between Temecula Parkway and Rancho California Road, and then it's going to widen to the east.
so like
This is
like a frontage road?
Correct.
basically?
This
And-
actually has
and,
it really clear.
And isn't, and we're not responsible for that, that's the,
Caltrans.
Caltrans is doing that, right?
It's a
Correct?
joint project.
That part of it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And that's going to be starting hopefully in the fall?
Hopefully in the fall.
Okay, great.
And I have some flyers for you for Public Works Week, so we can
Okay.
autograph it if you'd like.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Tell me your first name again.
Annie.
Annie, thank you, Annie, for your report. Okay, any other reports I'm not aware of? All right, then we are going to adjourn until June 7th at 6 p.m. June, what the heck? We're already going to be in June? Okay, meeting adjourned. How's that?